Let's go.
Dr. Rosie Milligan, one of the most sought-after speakers on the circuit today. Her live internet talk show, Express Yourself, is the most provocative, thought-provoking, and talked-about radio show on the internet. There's no holds barred, and Dr. Milligan puts the B in bold. She brings it every Tuesday live at 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Dr. Rosie has been proclaimed the most provocative female writer of the century. Her books include Satisfying the Black Man and Black Woman Sexually Made Simple, Why Black Men Choose White Women, and the book Nigga Please. These books have raised eyebrows across the country. She has authored 21 books and published 350 titles for authors nationwide. Check Dr. Rosie out at drrosie.com for her books, articles, and archives of her internet talk show. Sit at the feet of wisdom. Dr. Milligan is indeed a timekeeper and scorekeeper. She is the clock, calendar, and almanac for Black America. You need to hear her.
Well. Good morning. Good morning. Top of the morning. Top of the morning. You listen to the Express Yourself Hour. I am your host, Dr. Rosie Milligan, coming to you live as we always do with nothing but straight talk. You know, that's how we do it around here. I'm your host, Dr. Rosie Milligan. My co-hosts are the wonderful, the fabulous, the invisible man, Mr. Keith Swanson. He's a radio personality in his own rights. He's such a knowledgeable and versatile person. People are still looking for him. They're saying, does Keith really exist? Keith, I tell you. Keep telling me, yeah, he really is. He really does exist. Mm-hmm. So they keep looking for him. I had to promise him. In 2022, they said, we have to wait that long to the conference to see Keith? I said, well, you know, he said he was there before. They said, but we didn't know who to look for. He didn't have a sign. He didn't have a booth. I said, well, Keith's going to have to do better. Oh, my God. They still waiting for Keith. And my other co-host is a wonderful, we call her the Valid Girl. She is a real estate guru, author, a lecture trainer. And these are my co-hosts. And we are sitting in here today. As always, we bring you nothing but straight talk and bring you good and vital and valuable information. So today we are going to talk about, I think a topic that's really merit discussion is depression and suicide have increased among blacks. Well, in fact, it have increased just across the board. But it is higher through all reports and all my research. They look at the fact. It said there's been a relative increase in suicide overall, except among blacks. There have been almost a doubling of the number of suicides since the first peak of the pandemic. Did you hear what I said? Mm-hmm. So suicide and depression is definitely not isolated to blacks, and we know that. But when we're looking at the fact that it's doubling, and Keith, we can kind of look at some of the reasons that we can see more of it and see the doubling effect, because it goes back to status and economic, goes back to conditions and challenges that Black America faced pre-pandemic. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It kind of reminds me of a story once, a lady, her husband, he had cheated on her and he had an outside child. So he decided to tell her. But she said in her book, she said the reason she was able to kind of get through this because of that status of their marriage before the infidelity. She said she had never put gas in her car. Her husband always gassed her car. He never missed a game with her son. He never stopped doing anything that he was doing. That he was so good and so kind to her. She was saying that is what helped her. It was very hard. They went through some things trying to come through this. But she always stressed the fact that what he had been like before that happened made the blow less traumatic. So I'm trying to equate that with what's going on with the pandemic. That's the same thing we're seeing. There are other conditions that was pre-existing that had many blacks on edge already. So I think that plays into why we're looking at the doubling, the increase more so than many other ethnicities. And I look at when we talk about the wealth factor, Keith, we're actually looking at the Caucasian.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the other groups, I know I'm going to get some email on this one. You have to look at how they were from a family structure before the pandemic came. A lot of them was already living with each other, used to sharing, working business together, not as individualized as African American. We, kind of tend to solo. I have my own business. I have my own house. Both of us about to get evicted, but you paying rent over here and I'm paying rent over here because I got to have my own. Okay. Keith, I'm waiting on the mail, but I have to speak truth. It's true because now all of this is showing up now. Always doing traumatic experience, all the ills within our family, within our race, it shows up in a different way. What's your take on that, Keith?
I think that's the biggest problem, especially during COVID. It put a lot of stress on families, and I think that because people had to shelter in place and had to put up with each other and stuff like that. It kind of put social stress on people. But also, I think the biggest thing is that people that didn't live together, because we have become kind of like isolated, like islands, and we depend on going outside and getting in the car and go visiting one another to actually keep our social connections and stuff like that. I think a lot of people got caught, that all that stuff broke down and where they were actually by themselves for very long periods of time. And I think that's what caused a lot of depression. Especially black people are used to being in each other's presence, and I think that's what really affects them.
Yeah, and out in the street, on the corner, in the park. When you would go by the park and the park was empty, you're trying to figure out, where are these people? And you can go on in the black neighborhood community, you're going to find men on the corner or grouped up some way if it's just standing around a store. So you're absolutely right, that outside, that how men would get up, veterans or single men, they would get up and go and sit while other men were to laugh and talk and lie while they eat breakfast. You know what I mean? So they missed all of that. So that really put them in isolation. It wasn't that they were getting up, Keith, because they were headed to a job or headed to do the entrepreneurship. There were thousands of men who got up every day just to meet up with other men on the corner and talk and feel good. They didn't have to show no credentials. Nobody with a big I and a little U. They were all there just to talk about the ball game or talk about what was going on. Or to just tell them, as my uncle say, we would meet up just to tell a few lies.
Yeah.
So that's all of these things coupled with the fear, the stress, the isolation, the economic falls.
Yeah.
And having access to weapons when it comes to suicide. Because we're talking about depression. A lot of people commit suicide because of depression. And I think there are many people found themselves depressed and not associating with depression, because many don't know what depression is, so they didn't know. All they know is how they felt, so they never put a diagnosis on, well, I'm depressed. Because if they felt like, if they said I'm depressed, particularly African American, we tie mental condition into craziness. I'm not crazy.
I have a friend of mine. He's a professor in philosophy, right? And he talks about societies, especially modern societies, and anxiety, right?
Right.
And he says that because we live in these modern times, there's always puts anxiety on people, anxious about what are you going to do, where you're going to work, where you're going to, how much money you're going to make, keeping up with the Joneses, trying to keep a roof over your head, that kind of stuff. You already have anxiety that most, say, I wouldn't say lesser, but third world countries don't have. They don't have the same kind of modern anxiety like people in, say, in first world countries do. And then you put people that are already on anxiety, and then you have all the automation and stuff like that that's actually changing the society so fast that puts extra anxiety on people, okay? Because the rules that you used to have, they change like every 5 years, okay? How do you date? How do you meet people? How do you order food? What your job's going to be like? It changes so fast. And then, you have an anxious society like we have, and then you throw this kind of stuff on top of it, basically. And people that are on the margins, they start to break. And you see them all the time, Dr. Rosie. I'm sure people that they're doing okay, they're right on the edge, but the thing is they're just doing okay, so they're fine because their life is going fairly well and they're fairly stable. And so even though they got some kind of anxiety disorder, but they're okay, they're doing fine.
Right.
And then you throw something like this in it, and then the people at the margins are actually going to start breaking. That's what you're saying, in my opinion.
And plus, you already had these people who were stressing out, Keith, because of technology. A lot of people realized they were fearful. I mean, they live panicking, living in fear every day from, will I have my job? They're afraid of the technology. Don't want to do it, but I can't quit if I don't learn how to do it. They're going to replace me. So folks were really going through a lot of stressors before this thing happened. So when you added that to it, and some people don't associate even a lot of the mass killing and all of this as related to depression. But when you look at it, when people get depressed, a lot of times they do stop. They kill themselves and they kill others, because most of the people in these mass shootings, they kill themselves too.
Oh yeah, you have reports, because of remember during the lockdown where the schools weren't open and the mother had to be there, 24/7 with her kids because they couldn't go to school, and she had to sit in on the school day and become teacher, and a teacher and mother and all that kind of stuff. And they're not used to dealing with kids at that level for that long a time. You had a lot of women killing themselves and killing their children because they simply were not used to having 2 or 3 kids at home all the time and not having that relief of school. And kids are social, and they don't have their friends to run around with, so all they have is mommy.
Mommy hollering at them, okay? And especially when you were locked down with these children, you were supposed to help them. All of a sudden, you were supposed to basically become their teacher. And the frustration came from many parents because they cannot help their children. Many of them, they're partially illiterate, And when I said partially illiterate, because the average American can't even assemble a toy that comes with instruction. There's a lot of literary challenge that's running wild, I would say, in the nation. And I'm not talking about among black people. Black people do lag behind when it comes to literary and technology function. So all of these things, that's why I was saying, Keith, the thing that existed before compounded the lives of Black America during the pandemic. Yeah. So that's why you can see the doubling of the depression, the doubling of the suicide.
Oh yeah, my goodness.
They just became overwhelmed from what they was already dealing with.
My goodness. And they have access to drugs that they never had before, like the opioids are so powerful now, man. They've caught thousands of pounds of these opioids that have come through over the border, and say fentanyl. Okay, basically a kilo, 2 pounds of fentanyl, raw fentanyl, will actually kill something like 500,000 people if they overdose on it. That's how powerful the stuff actually is. And in San Francisco, I think they caught 140 pounds, and said the 140 pounds get the whole state high.
Wow!
And they just caught it. It was just one bust. And they down in Mexico, they showed pictures of the vice, videos of vice of them mixing this fentanyl, this opioid with cocaine, which is called a
Oh
speedball.
my goodness.
Yeah. We remember John Belushi a long time ago from Saturday Night Live, and he overdosed.
Yeah. Yeah.
He overdosed on a speedball with cocaine and opioid mixed. And if we had a couple in Las Vegas, they were actually they OD'd on the same thing. I think one was an actor. I think they overdosed on the same thing, but now it's coming pre-mixed, coming from Mexico. So you have a lot of that stuff going on. People actually not only committing suicide, but also drug overdoses are shot way up. So you got all this stuff mixed in together. It's just it's almost sad to see, and they've tried to put a floor under this, like with the unemployment and with the rent moratoriums and stuff like that. They try to put a floor under this, and at some point, what happens when they remove that floor and they really put people under stress?
That's frightening. I think about that every day. I think about what's going to happen and how it just impacts whole family. You got. Unfortunately, you have a lot of families who cannot even help out. You have people who may have a little money, a little economics. At least they can help pay their cousin rent or their sister. They can help their child hold on. But when you're dealing with the very least economically deprived, then I mean it's going to be unlivable condition, because the people around you who fall in this category, you can't say it doesn't impact you, because you're the one that subject to get robbed, or someone subject to take your car. I understand now they have a lot of people taking, what is that part on a car? It's I can't think of, but they're taking them out of cars now. I don't know what part. It's not distributor. It's catalytic converter.
Yeah, catalytic converter. Yeah.
Right. I'm hearing of a lot of people having those taken from the cars. Yeah. Let me get the number out, Keith, in case someone want to chime in with some experience or just want to make comments. Call us here at 310-928-7733. That's 310-928-7733. We are talking about depression and suicide have increased among blacks. And we're looking at some of the reasons.
It's in catalytic converters, right?
Yeah.
Platinum.
Oh, that's what's in it?
You know how much platinum is worth, right? It's worth more than gold.
Are you kidding?
No.
Oh,
that's what they're stealing for the platinum inside. Yeah.
Is it in every car?
Yeah, that's what converts the carbon dioxide to water and oxygen is the platinum balls inside of it.
But they claim that certain cars, I guess, maybe it's easy to take them.
Yeah,
it is. But my point is this, that this thing impacts us all. So don't get thinking that, well, I'm okay. I got enough to weather the storm. I can pull from my 401k. This thing impact when I think we learned so well from 911 that when one hurt, we all hurt. And that's what we're really going to have to embrace this thing and understand. And when there are things that need to be done to help society, we all going to have to pitch in. We all going to have to fight for the social equality and economic equality for all, because the people that have not are the ones that will take your son out who just finished college, standing at the ATM machine, or snatch him out of his car, coming from work as a doctor, 7 a.m. These are the type of things that we're seeing. So we got to understand we're really in this thing together, whether we want to face it or not.
Yeah.
And I think we have someone, 310-420. I don't know if they're just listening. If you want to make a comment, just unmute yourself at any time and have your say. But depression is one of, and see, when you're depressed, Keith, and isolated, that makes it worse.
Yeah, it does.
See, it used to be if you were depressed, you could get up and somebody say, oh, come on, girl, get up, let's go bowling. Get on out of the house. Come on, let me take you for a ride. But look what happened during COVID. Isolation on top of depression. Folks, do you know what you got there?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that just weren't, that were used to, for their socialization, getting up and going to the club, or even going to the store or the library or wherever whatever their routine was, where you meet people that they know, coffee shops and stuff like that. Even the little cafes that we have, right? All the little
Right.
cafes, and especially in the black community, where
Yeah.
people used to go to and they eat breakfast or they sit down and drink coffee. Okay, they closed down. So all their friends that they normally meet up and eat breakfast with or drink coffee with, guess what they couldn't do?
And that's what a lot of black men did.
Hmm.
I used to laugh sometimes. I say, all these men, are they single? Do they have wives? And I discovered a lot of them had wives, but this was something for them to do. They were retired, or they were unemployed. So they get up and go meet up with the boys and they have breakfast. As they say, they would laugh and tell a few lies, and go on back home. And
Hmm.
there were a lot of people who their children couldn't come over. I know my sister wouldn't allow, she lives in Georgia. She didn't allow her grandchildren to come over. They wanted to come over to see her. She said no because of COVID. She said, because, your parents take you everywhere you big enough to go. So, I mean, the loneliness, I think, has a great impact, and the uncertainty as to when this thing is over. There are a lot of people, Keith, they
Hmm.
are just anxious as can be because they know this uh moratorium is going to be over. They're going to be evicting people. People are going to be losing their homes, and it just isn't enough mental health facility to help people. That's why last couple of weeks when we talk about
Hmm.
what the churches could be doing, and I was saying they're open, they got all this space available 6 days a week, they got all this office space. It's no reason why. And they're nonprofit. That maybe
Hmm.
they could get the government to pay a
Hmm.
psychologist or a
Hmm.
psychiatrist to be on site to
Hmm.
just help people. People need help. You
Yeah,
don't get through this crisis on your own. I mean, everybody in the whole household is jacked up. So it's like
that's true.
the
And
blind helping the blind.
you got to remember too, Dr. Rosie, okay, the bulk of the people, where do they socialize? They socialize at where? Work. Work and school is two places where people actually, especially in urban areas, meet and socialize. Most of your friends are at school, or most of your friends are at work, or your associates are at work. What happens when you have to work from home or go to school from home?
Right. And church. I mean, church was
Hmm.
key
Hmm.
for many uh black Americans. Their whole life is church. I
Hmm.
mean, where do you go? I mean, you go to church broke. You don't have to have any money. You don't have to dress up. I mean, that's one place you could go when you couldn't go any place else. So when you look at the fact, especially the elderly, many of them, they just look forward to Sunday, to Sunday, to Sunday. That's all they had going in their lives.
Hmm.
And now your children can't come over. Your grandchildren can't come over. And coupled with the fact that people was living in fear of dying. Folks, uh, that's great stress on a person.
Hmm.
Outside of COVID, anything that's threatened your life or make you feel like you might not be living, that's a lot of stress. That's
It
a
is.
lot of stress.
It is. It is. And this is, and I don't think, I think even after we get through this mess, I don't think it's going to go away. I think it's going to be here for a while. This is going to be the new normal. So people are really going to have to, reach out and learn coping mechanisms because, um, like my professor said, he said the biggest thing that causes anxiety in a population is the speed of change, and that's not slowing down.
Right. And one of the greatest things that concern people is being insecure. Number one, where am I going to live?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big fear.
Mm-hmm.
Where am I going to live? Will my and for men, I can imagine it's really difficult because many of them feel responsible for their wife and their family.
Mm-hmm.
And when they see that shell falling apart, when they see I had a good job in this business, boom,
Yeah,
it's closed up to
it's
come
gone.
back no more.
It's gone. Yeah.
Now, so in the time that you should be loving to each other,
Mm-hmm.
supportive to each other, everybody's at each other's throat.
Yeah. Yeah. And and with men, especially black men, okay, people will take in a woman because she's not seen as a threat. But most men don't have those kind of options. I'm not saying
And,
all, but most don't.
and a lot of them, Keith, who might have that option,
Mm-hmm.
men tend to be slow to reach out for help because they feel
Mm-hmm.
like I'm a man. I mean, how I don't want to. I'd rather hit the street than to try to go live with my sister, to live with my mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So I think they wait till they hit rock bottom. So then they end
they
up,
do.
some of them drinking or on drugs, trying to escape the reality. And you're only compounding the issue. You make it worse. Now you want to go stay with your sister, but you're drinking all day. You can't go to work if a job came to you. So you see how
Mm-hmm.
the ripple effect of all this stuff is impacting families?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. They, it's all over the place. But even when you talk to people, the stress that and the impact on families was just this. I mean, but the thing is at this point, what really can they do about it? So I think a lot of people feel helpless.
That's it. That's it. That's when it's bad, when you have a lot of people who just feeling they don't see help coming from no place. They wake up every day with uncertainties. Where am I going to live? Where will I get another job? I mean, these are some real hard factors. I don't know how we're going to get around that. You can say, well, okay, we're not going to cut your lights off, but that's not going to reduce this anxiety, because I know this is not going to always be the norm. All you're doing, you're sparing me some pain for now, but what about later? You can't decrease the fears with these type of uncertainties.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't. It's yeah. I mean, really, what really can you do? You got the government shelling out all kinds of money just to keep things afloat, and it's just circumstances that's doing this. Um, it's going to be really interesting because I have people, the PhDs got their pens out, man. They're taking notes because they're interested in seeing what happens, because this is something that really never happened before. And if you think about it, this is why Donald Trump didn't win his election, right? You have the worst pandemic or a medical crisis in 100 years in the United States. You haven't had this since the Spanish flu in 1918, on top of the worst depression since the Great Depression, right?
Yeah, right.
And so put those two things together at one time, in 1 year, in a year and a half, and it's miraculous that the population is doing as well as it is under the stress that it's under.
Wow, it's really something. So what I want to share with the audience,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about depression, but let's look at some signs. Let's look at some
Mm-hmm.
things that you should be looking for, because we tend to turn our head when there are behavior and mental changes in our family. Why do we do that? Because we really don't want to see it. You don't want to see your mama depressed.
Yeah.
So act as if things are okay. But let's just be real. Let's start looking at some of the behavior. When you see people start isolating, who used to come in the den and you all would watch TV, or they come home, hi mom, hi dad, had a conversation, how was your day? All of a sudden, they're in their room all day. I know they're in their room now because of isolation, COVID, but they stay in their room. You never get a chance to see their eyes. They don't come out to eat. They don't come out to do anything with you. Then you notice they're tired, how they're dressing. You notice how they're not shaving anymore. They become unkempt. So you gotta look for that. Something, or you notice alcohol bottles under the bed, in the trash can. And some people say, well, you ain't supposed to be in their room. How would you know all this going on? I'm telling you guys, you best to go in the room. You better look up on the mattress. You better peep everywhere you can. Just don't let them catch you doing it. But you got to keep your eyes on, because it's not just, as I mentioned, the reason we need to talk about this topic, because the next victim of depression and suicide could be from your household. I'm going to repeat that. The next victim could be from your household. So that's why we need to have this conversation, start talking about clues. When you have a person that wasn't drinking at all and all of a sudden they just drinking the whole time, something is going on. How can you turn your head to say, well, it is something going on? But like I said, getting help now, Keith, for mental health at a time when people need it most, it's really not available because they can only see so many people or see you via Zoom. And look how many people don't even know how to operate Zoom.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I found that out with my grandson. And I even found that out with some of the teachers trying to teach on Zoom. Okay. I had to do a whole lot of technical support.
Exactly. So we need to look at how has their behavior changed. You find a person quiet. You find somebody want to argue, is argumentative. Everything you say, they want to pick a fight, to make a mountain out of every mole. It's something going on there. Yeah,
that's stress. Yeah, you see an obvious personality change.
Exactly. And it's happening in a lot of children. Folks, you really got to pay attention to your children because they become depressed and they become suicidal. And one of the things that makes them depressed is your depression. I mean, they're not blind. They're not deaf. They hear the conversation between mom and dad or between mom and her friend. They hear the devastation. This impacts them too.
Yeah, and they isolate themselves because they don't have an outlet. Like at least one thing that I noticed is that at least for a lot of people, if they're isolated, at least they had to get up and go to school every day or go to work every day.
Right.
And they were forced to be around people, whether they liked it or not. So even if they didn't want to initiate any contact, they were forced to have contact with people because of the activity. And what happens when you take that away?
Wow. And that's what has happened. And you're looking at, people become either they're very withdrawn, or many times they become very hyper. They become very argumentative. These are some of the symptoms when a person going through insecurity, anxiety, depression. They pick a fight about anything. They misread anything you say. They start projecting things into their feeling that they think you think, and then they making you think that you think that. Well, you think I'm not trying to find a job. You never said that. Isn't it amazing how people can put words in your mouth, Keith?
Yeah.
Yeah, they can put words in your mouth. Go, well, you ain't trying to find no job. Now people start blaming each other. Here, all these businesses closed, and you are arguing with somebody about whether they're trying to find a job or not. Because you're feeling insecure. What you're really saying is how we're going to make it. I'm not really mad at you because you don't have a job. I'm mad because I don't know how we're going to pay this rent, how we're going to make it.
And the job you may have had may have paid you $25 an hour, and the job that they're trying to offer you is $7.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Keith, we're going to take a call from area code 714. Go ahead, give us your name, where you calling from, and what's your take.
Well, good morning, Dr. Rosie. This is Benny Baxter calling from Cypress, California.
Oh, Benny, I haven't heard from you in so long. It's so good to hear from you. What prompted you to call this morning?
This subject matter, because I've always wondered, when talking about mental health, is it better for us as African-American people to get a counselor? Say, for instance, we go for counseling, because some people say they can relate better to a person of color, better than a non-person of color when they go for counseling.
A lot of people have those issues. They want to see someone who look like them. And I think that's in every ethnicity, because culture is really a binding force. You feel like, well, this person can understand when I say that I don't have a job. They can understand the pressure that I'm going through. They can understand the fears that I have. They can understand my struggle. They can understand why I'm so fearful when my son is away from home, because they can understand what the gang ties and what it's that way. When I talk to other ethnicities, and I do a lot of surveys, and I question them, Benny, and they all tell me they'd rather be seen by their own ethnicity for a doctor, for a nurse. See, people don't like to talk about that, but that is really real. People feel more comfortable because there's something about a cultural experience and feeling like this person know and understand my plight.
Yes, yes. And then my other question is, how do we as Black people remove that stigma of I'm not crazy, I don't need any help, I'm not crazy? How do we get that removed? Because, you're crazy if you don't get help. That's the way I feel about it.
That's exactly. It's interesting. I worked in psych some years, and I observed something there. The people who were committed were not the people who were sick. It was the folks who was at home driving them crazy because they were crazy, okay? So I think when we remove the word crazy,
yes,
and start talking about it. You raised a good point, Benny. We need to start. Where do we go? Where do we spend most of our time? At church. It needs to be a welcoming topic. We need to talk about it there, that it's okay. Well, last week we did a show on 5 things if your church not doing, you need to walk away. But one of the things we did talk about with churches being open, closed 6 days a week, but all this office space being nonprofit, they should be able to get some funding to have a counselor, a psychologist, or somebody to be there to kind of help people get through this. Because even if you have a crisis, think about it. Doctor can only take so many people.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can't even get help now. That's the sad part. So that's why we need to be able to turn to family, turn to the churches, turn somewhere, because people when you can't turn in a place with all these challenges, here you sit and don't know whether you're going to be put out of your house when September comes. That's an awful feeling. And you're seeing all these people on the street, you're seeing all these tents. That's enough to make a person want to go start drinking.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, trying to escape. Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, people start reading into Keith when they start getting paranoid. They start getting all type of mental challenge. And they think you picking on them, you talking about them. They hear what that's not being said.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, and couple that, we're talking about depression, we're talking about suicide, people feeling helpless, that they see no hope. And to couple that with what we're seeing in this country with racism, my God.
Yeah.
You add that factor in, you can, that's compound on top of compound, isn't it, Keith?
Yeah. It is. And the things that kind of make people cope or help people cope, because this is such a rich country. Basically it's, some of this stuff is not there anymore. And
not going to be there here anymore.
And people nowadays don't have the same survival skills that you had, Dr. Rosie, when you were growing up.
Right.
So if there was no store, things broke down or something like that, basically, you were taught that, okay, I don't have these structures, so I have to go back to the old ways of doing things and get it off the land. Okay. So you had a better connection with the land. And that's what a lot of things that people take for granted. Okay. Even in a smaller population, like a rural population where you don't have a lot of people, okay, you have a connection to earth, to nature, and a connection to the land, and that keeps you grounded, and it keeps you calm, and keeps you sane, right?
Yeah, because one thing we knew that we were not going to starve, right?
You're not going to starve, but the thing is, you can just walk out of your back door and commune with nature, okay? You can't do that in an urban setting, okay? You can't do that. You got concrete. And you don't have the same kind of spiritual connection with the land that you had. So that's another factor.
Keith, it is so, I don't know if our community at large really realize what's going on among our people. Not only are you dealing with racism at its highest, You're dealing with police brutality. You're dealing with how do I tell my children? You're dealing with the fear of gain. You're dealing with the fears of, will my child get back home? You're dealing with, how do I teach them how to deal with the police? Do I tell them not to run? And and some people saying, well, if they don't run, they're going to shoot you anyway. So people tend to take a chance on their life, because I used to always wonder, why do people keep running? But then one psychiatrist was saying to me, a natural instinct when you feel threatened, it's, is to run. Even if you start out running and say, well, I need to stop. I don't need to do this. But the first instinct is to flight.
Flight, yeah. Yeah, people did actually three. It's fight or flight, but also the second one, the last one is to freeze.
Yeah. Which
is more of what you learn as a child. Okay, you can't fight, you can't flee because you're too small. So your third option is to freeze, and I think a lot of people are regressing back to freeze. If they see it coming and they know they can't do anything about it, so instead of being active about it or fighting back against it, they freeze in place. And I think that's where a lot of the depression comes in. That's where the helplessness comes in, because they just freeze and do nothing.
And Keith, you also I talk to people, a lot of men and women who are so fearful because they're totally dependent, not totally, but they're living with their parents. And they'll say to me, I'm scared. All these people dying from COVID. I'm fearful. What if my mom died? Where am I going to stay? Some of them and their children are living with their parents or grandparents. So I'm telling you, there are so much taking place out here that people becoming mentally unbalanced.
Yeah.
And a mental unrest. And when all that start happening, folks, I'm telling you, we're walking on danger ground. Walking on danger ground. People get where they don't see any hope. What do people do when they don't see any hope?
Yeah.
They don't just lay down, so I'm just going to lay here and smile and wait till Jesus comes.
Yeah.
They create anger. They get angry.
Yeah.
And those who have, they feel like it's my right to take it from you because you got it.
Oh yeah, that is becoming a huge thing. Robberies and carjackings are up because all the police officers that I talked to said that stuff is skyrocketing.
Wow, and you guys don't mention the schemes. I had a person who called me was scheming. Okay, he had this man who was dying with cancer. He was getting dialysis and he was getting chemo. The man owned a lot of property. He owned 32 properties. He came here and he worked. He's 93. He bought liquor stores and pawn shops. So he owned 32 properties paid for. He didn't have doesn't have any children, didn't have a wife. And he didn't want what he had to go to the state. So he wanted to almost give it away. But what he wanted to do is sell all his houses for $50,000 and sell 8-unit apartment for $100,000. Good story. Scheming to get, and he doesn't want to do it on credit. He only want to do it cash because he don't want to run the cash. He don't want to run all this money through his bank. What happens when people really stressed and people really depressed, people feeling hopeless? They believe lies. Well, not lies. They believe schemes. Because when you're desperate, I think you tend to hear what you want to hear. What do you think about that? Even though there's no logic, but your needs are so great that you can't think straight. I don't care what people say. I don't know if anybody out there ever been broke, ever been depressed, ever been in a desperate situation. Don't you tell me that you think the way you could think when things were going okay. You're at a vulnerable position when these things happen. That's why scheming is at its highest.
Because you need to believe something, and people prey upon what you need to believe. Because you're praying for a miracle, and then somebody walks in and offers you a miracle, you tend to jump on it and take it. And then
Exactly.
when you take it, guess what you find out? It's not a miracle at all. It's actually a scheme.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So I want people to really be aware of these type of things. And then you think about suicide, somebody come in and scheme you out of everything that you have. You might just want to jump overboard.
Mm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They're jumping. Okay. In more ways than one. They're killing themselves and killing other people, because mass shootings are way up, you know. They were down because people were locked in, but after they released these people and these people came out all stressed out, they've been going to town. So
Wives are being beaten, children are being abused.
mm-hmm.
This thing is causing a lot of problems.
And not just abuse. I mean, straight up killed, murder, suicides. That's just skyrocketed.
And then with the last few minutes, let's talk about this. What do you do when you get in these situations? You see the change in your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
They're ready. There should never be any hidden abuse because that can lead to a lot of stuff. But what do you do when you see these kind of changes? Do you call your girlfriend and talk to her about how your husband's acting, or do you try to get help? Or do you talk to him?
The first thing you do, first thing you should do when you're anxious, because this is anxiety, right? And that anxiety energy needs something to do. The first thing you need to do is get out and take a walk, a daily walk, for like 30 minutes. You'll be surprised how that will get rid of a lot of this cortisol, because it's a flight stress hormone, right? You're building up all this cortisol that's in your system that has to go somewhere, right? So the easiest way to get rid of that cortisol that's making you anxious is actually get out and burn it off. Get out and walk, get out and run, get on a bike, because you stay closed up in the house being anxious, guess what? It's just going to feed upon itself. So if you feel like depressed or something like that, get outside, even if you put on a mask, get outside and walk down the block. Walking is free. That's the first thing that you should do. Get out of the house, get away from the house, for half an hour, and just walk by yourself. Okay. Most neighborhoods, like 99% of neighborhoods actually, especially during the daytime, are perfectly fine to get out and walk.
Right, because everybody's home.
Everybody's home. Yeah, get out and walk.
Scream, somebody gonna hear you.
Yeah.
And one good thing, advice I would like to share, when you're under all this stress and you have someone in your family that want to be all argumentative, don't go there with them. They're trying to pick a fight. They just exploding on you because you're the closest thing to them. Learn to de-escalate these type of things. Don't join it. Don't add to the fire. Don't go throw oil in a fire. Cool it down with changing the conversation, or just, say, well, I think we need to talk about this later. I don't think you heard what I really said. I think you took it out of context. And if they go, oh yeah, I know that's what you said. I know that's what you meant. Now here you're trying to tell somebody that you didn't mean something that they're arguing with you about, and they tell them, yeah, you meant it. How can you argue with a person like that? How can you convince them that you didn't say what they said and you said? So why are you going to argue with them? I think we got to learn to walk away. And one lady told me, she said, I tried what you told me. I tried to walk away, and that dude grabbed me by the shoulder, pulled me back. I thought, oh.
There's exceptions to everything, especially after COVID, boy. You
ain't gonna walk away from me. I'm talking.
Yeah, you ain't gonna walk away.
Run, okay? Get away.
You have to. These COVID relationships, I'm telling you.
They are off the chain, because a lot of people will never happy at home. That's why they stayed away.
Yeah.
I'm talking about married couples. They stayed away. They worked late hours. They did overtime. They did everything. And now you stuck at home together.
Yeah, you stuck at home together. And then
he don't want to be there and you don't want him there. You got a mess on your hands.
And then you split up. You find out that it ain't that easy to get a replacement.
I don't think nobody trying to split up. They just arguing and fussing. I don't think nobody trying to split up right now, okay? I don't think they're going to be trying to split up for a long time, because, Keith, we in for a long economic deprivation ride. You guys, this ain't no passing over next week. No, this is not short term.
I have never seen so many black women killing their spouses and their boyfriends, and every time you look into it, you find out, okay, why did she kill him? I said they're having an argument. He was trying to end the relationship. He was trying to leave, and she wasn't going to let him leave. And
how you gonna leave me in a time like this? I mean,
time like this.
I mean, if you were gonna leave, you should have left before. You ain't leave me here with these 6 kids, folks. Y'all better get somewhere to sit down. Go get you some counseling.
Yeah, that's the first thing, and that's the thing is that okay, it's not the way it used to be. Okay, you can take a walk if you need counseling. All you got to do is find somebody online and schedule a Zoom call. You ain't got to go sit in the office.
That's right.
And sit there, look at cross your legs and look at the receptionist. You schedule your Zoom call and put in your information, and you can get counseled. You can get counseling within an hour. It doesn't have to take weeks.
That is excellent.
A lot of your counselors are sitting at home in front of a computer anyway, so. Mm-hmm. They can see a lot. They can see a lot more patients, and really all they're going to do is talk to you anyway. So you don't have to be there in person. It's better in person because you can get the vibe from them. But you can get them on Zoom.
Wow. So if you feel like you need help, you guys, you want to call the hotline. I mean, don't get overwhelmed. Don't be so macho that you feel like, well, I can handle it. When you see you're going off the edge, but family, those who are out there, start looking for signs of depression. When people start doing, just like you look for cheating, okay? You know what to look for when you think your mate is cheating. Mm-hmm. You notice how they change their dress. They may buy cologne, stuff they never did before. You know the behavior. There are behaviors to everything. So start looking at these behaviors when it comes to depression, when it comes to a person being suicidal. And one thing people do who are suicidal, Keith, they tend to cry a lot at the drop of a hat. Mm-hmm. They tend to tear up a lot. They cry. They're very sad. I mean, you can tell the demeanor. You've been sleeping with this person 30 years and you don't notice a change. Mm. Then you about as depressed as he is, both of you. I hope the kids can come in and see that you both need help. It's not comfortable living with a person that's depressed, but you want to recognize it. Mm-hmm. So you can try to get help from them. So you say, well, they're not going to see a counselor. That's fine. Then find somebody that they like to talk to, that they like being around. And you, spearhead them talking to someone that they've always enjoyed talking to. Mm-hmm. Maybe you need to connect them with the old friend. Talk to the old friend and say, why don't you call my husband? He's kind of down. Don't discuss anything. Just act as if you were just thinking about him. Sometimes we have to do this kind of stuff because people tend to relate when they're depressed. You can get a person that they're close to easier for them to at least talk to. And sometimes all they need to do is talk because they shut up. They don't have anything to say. And instead of you trying to help them, you get mad. Mm-hmm. You don't say anything. You just go to your room and that's all and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
What they telling you they depressed.
Yeah. Yeah. They've never really had to handle the kids because kids have been in school 8 hours a day. You've been at work. So you see them after you get off to work, you feed them, you do their homework. You look at TV, they play video games, you go to bed. So you never really get to know the whole child. Okay. Or what the child thinks because all you're doing is in maintenance mode. So now you're stuck with the child, 12 hours a day. And the child needs somebody to talk to, and so that you get to really know the personality of the child, and you're getting pissed off because you haven't developed the skill to actually handle that child's personality.
And you really hit it on something, Keith, when it comes to children, when they're depressed and they're uncertainty. Mm-hmm. Now what they're doing, they're already on the computer and the game. When you see them, they don't want to do nothing. They don't want to look up. You can't even get little Johnny to come and eat. You notice he's losing weight. He's not eating. I mean, these are all symptoms. All they want to do is get up. They're not burying themselves into a liquor bottle, but they're burying themselves into something. When people are depressed, they tend to bury themselves in
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, yeah, and what I've been hearing, especially for teenagers, right? Teenagers that they may not work, and they don't have this, they don't have really have school for instance, right? For the most
Uh-huh.
part, they start to lose a track of time. So they may go to class for 3 or 4 hours, but the thing is they're at home and they're doing other things, and they may not go to bed till 6 o'clock in the morning, or they don't have a regular routine, so they're losing kind of touch with their routine, and that is not good for human beings not to have a routine. Okay,
No, it's not.
because you grew up on a farm where you woke up at dawn, and then
Hmm.
when it got to be dark, then you kind of received, but you had a routine, you had a rhythm, and I think
Right.
a lot of this COVID is getting people out of rhythm.
Out of rhythm. They don't know what they're going to do. Keith, we
Mm.
have something on the board. Can you read it?
Okay. I said the first has come from A. Roger. She says, "Great show, Dr. Rosie. Thank you for discussing this. This is a very important topic." And the second one comes from Nadia. He said, "Hi, Dr. Rosie. Listening to you here in Miami, Florida. The extroverts are having a real problem. That's true with the lockdowns, and they're very depressed and getting crazy. I wish COVID-19 wasn't real because I fear we're all in big trouble as this ain't going away." That's very true, Nadia. And what to think about that, Dr. Rosie? You have people with different personalities. You have introverts that are used to being kind of like by themselves more and less out in the crowd. And you have the extroverts, the party people that are used to having a whole bunch of people around them. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah. Well, they really feel secluded, and it become. I think it's harder on the person who has always been going out, going places they can't go anymore. I think it's really hard for them, and the people who are staying in, it's hard. It's hard for them too, because any change is not as hard, because
Mm-hmm.
they already used to reading their books, laying in the bed, go where they have to go and come back home. They don't go in the place anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
it is not impacting them. But also, I'm telling you all, the other thing that's driving people crazy is because they cannot turn away from this darn television. I mean, why are you going to look at this? I mean, it's depressing. I mean, how you, and people glued to it like they were the 911. They glued to that darn TV to see what's going to happen next. You know
Mm.
what's going to happen next. So if you can turn off that TV for a minute, that can really help you. And I was thinking, Keith, see, COVID have not impacted my business because I'm an estate planner. I do wills, trust, power of attorneys. And I tell you that my business has been, I've seen more clients than I saw the year before COVID. So that means that I'm out. There are people that I can get the information on Zoom, and they come in and get that paperwork notarized. But my point is, just sitting here talking today
Mm-hmm.
made me realize, what would it really be like for me if my business had been shut down? And Keith, you know how outgoing I am and all the things I do. At least I do Zoom. Thank God for that, because I've been able to do a lot of things on Zoom. But my business have not been shut down at all. But can you imagine
Mm-hmm.
what it would be like? I don't know, you guys. I don't know if I would be depressed. I don't know what would happen. I'm just thinking now as I listen to people, that's a hard place to be for somebody like me who got to be homebound.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You gotta basically you have to reach out. Okay, they have Zoom, they have all kinds of they have social media. You know what I found out, Dr. Rosie, on
What?
social media is that if there's one thing about social media, right? If you get on it, you can basically actually spill out your guts because nobody knows who you are.
They spilling out too much, so Keith. Lord have mercy. They spilling out too darn much now. This social media, they going book wild because they don't have anything to do.
Yeah.
Incriminating themselves up there, talking about stuff they have done, something that you done got away with. Now you on the internet talking about, I was with them when they did this. I mean, that's why I said people have lost their mind.
But the thing is that you can be who you really are online because nobody can find you. Nobody knows who you are, and they can't impact your immediate your social circle wherever you're at, because you could be next door, you could be all the way across the country, and so people are more, because of that cloak, are more likely to be more revealing about who they really are. And I think a long time ago, Dr. Viscott used to tell people that sometimes to get rid of the anxiety, and it has to go someplace. Sometimes he used to suggest just writing a letter.
Now that's very powerful.
And writing a letter and just burning it, right?
Yeah, that's a good time to do that, Keith.
Yeah,
you don't have to mail it; just write it. Tell them what you think about it.
What you think about it, whatever's going on in your mind. You can actually do that online and just keep it impersonal. There's a lot, like Reddit. There's a lot of anonymous places where you can actually write it, and people can interact with it. So
they can comment on it.
You get some feedback. And at least you got it out. So it's not perfect. You still should see, somebody like Dr. Rosie to talk about it, so you can get some one-to-one answers. But the thing is, there are outlets for you to actually alleviate some of that anxiety.
In other words, get it out, huh, Keith?
Get it out. Yeah.
Get it out. I want you all to write this down. Get it out. Don't take it out.
Yeah.
Don't take it out on somebody. Get it out. Write it out. So that's going to be my slogan. Write it out. Don't write it out on paper. Don't take it out on people.
And
that's a good thing. That's a good slogan, huh, Keith?
Yeah. And the other good positive thing about social media, there's a lot of negative, but the other positive thing about it is what I find out is people find out there's more than there's a whole bunch of people who have the same problem that you do. And the biggest problem that people have is that they think that they're the only one to have this problem.
That is so true. That is so true. They think, why me, Lord? It's just me, when it's not. Wow. Folks, I just want you to recognize that. I want you to start looking at your children, your family. We did this show just for you to go inside of yourself and start looking around at your own family, because you don't know, it may be somebody right there in your house who's getting ready to overdose, take a gun, go do something. And when people tell you they thinking about something, don't just say, go somewhere and sit down, it'll pass, don't worry about it. You'll feel better tomorrow. Take everything serious that people are telling you now. Everything people tell you, take it serious. We have a caller. Caller, go ahead, give us your name.
Last second, you just got in.
Go ahead, caller.
Only got a few minutes, caller.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm wondering about your address.
You want my address?
Well, the address to the station.
Oh, it's innerlightradio.com. That's INNER radio.com.
Yeah, Innerlight. All one word. Innerlightradio.com. All one word.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks for calling. Well, Keith, we're about out of time. But this has been interesting. I think, Keith, as we were going through this, did you kind of focus on your own life and have some thoughts about how you really feeling yourself during this time? It really woke up something in me when I thought about how grateful I am that my business was not shut down, because if it had been, I don't know, mentally, psychological, I can't tell you where I would be right now.
Yeah, I thought about it, but the thing is, what I think about it is, a person like me and you, okay, because we're connected to these events, right? So we see this coming way, kind of before they actually get here,
right?
So we've already thought about it. We hypothesized theories about how we're actually going to cope with it. So even if we don't perfectly cope with it, we've already prepared ourselves that, okay, we know it's coming, we know how it's going to feel, how's it going to affect me, how's it going to affect people and family. So I think people that listen to us, people like us, and people that listen to the show, I think they get through it a lot better because it doesn't catch them off guard. In other words, it's not something that just happens one day, okay? Like when they sent the children home from school, right, most people weren't prepared, right? I already knew it was coming. So, and I already had told my daughter that if things get worse, just take him out ahead of time, right? And so by the time he was out of school, he already had a computer, he already had a desk, he already had internet set up, he already had everything he needed to do to actually just switch over. So basically the crossover was seamless. So we were already prepared about how to handle, situations like this even before it even happened. So.
And that's what we want people to do from this show, Keith, because you guys, every time they give an extension or something, people get comfortable. Well, we got they giving us the tenancy right to stay until September. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to say this is like who moved my cheese? The cheese is going to...
Dr. Rosie, you know what? I'm done with you. Okay. I am done with you. Okay. Who moved my cheese? I am done with you, young lady.
It really is. Like who moved my cheese? They done told you, see the cheese going away. And you just still, woo. I have a sigh of relief now. So what happened? Woo. Tennis right until September. September is how many months away, Keith?
It's like 2 months, yeah.
It's amazing how we get so complacent, so satisfied. And then I thought, well, I guess what do you do? What planning do they do if you don't have a job? No job in sight. They said, well, how do we plan? You go knock on Aunt Jessie, I know you got an empty room. That's how you plan.
Yeah, got to
You're
plan.
not going to go on the tent.
Yeah.
Start staying with somebody else. Why don't we get a place together?
Got to get a place together. I'm on unemployment for a year or something like that, or more. And they're giving online training. Why don't I get into that?
Uh-huh.
You can learn basically if you ain't got nothing to do all day, right? You at home, you can learn the code in 6 months because all you got is time. You got a computer, you got a connection, you got time. You can train yourself to do something else.
Some people been on unemployment for a whole year and over now, Keith, and they haven't taken a class, not even online, haven't done anything to turn this thing around. And this show is going to re-air, you guys, at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And let's see. We have a call on the line. Caller, do you have any comments before we close off? 323-496. Do you have a comment?
I think she just wanted to know the
Actually, I wanted to know the address, and I was listening to your conversation, and I can appreciate what you're saying. As a teacher, I think that everyone should self-educate in the first place, because 93% of the teachers now are of a different persuasion, and that means that we have people who, a lot of them voted for Trump. They are, in fact, influencing our children.
Yes, they are.
And to be honest with you, while we may be monitoring what they watch on television, what parents are looking at the videos that they're showing while they're at home, engaged in virtual learning. That's an area, too, that needs to be looked at, because I've substituted for some teachers, and some of the videos that I was asked to show, I was appalled. So that's another area we need to get into, these organizations that are pumping out media for teachers to show students, because, if they don't have our best interests at heart, certainly they're not going to have our children's best interests at heart. Right now, personally, I am trying to address our children are still choosing the white doll. There's been a significant increase in the suicide rate, as well as globally, there has been the use of skin bleaching cream is skyrocketing. And when you think about that, scientists have found traces of lipstick in the brain of the fetus. So when you think in terms of just the lipstick, I've had Jerry curls and perms. Yes, I went there. Where do those chemicals go?
Yeah.
You understand? So it's really deep. We do need to pay attention to our environment. And I say go back to nature as much as you can. Especially we have all these peaches and cherries and watermelons, albeit it's difficult to get things to them out. genetically modified, but what you going to do? So as far as grow your own, but just be careful and pay attention to what you're consuming and what your children are watching, and we can survive this.
And you made a key point too, a key point what they're watching, because you letting them watch nothing but violence, like all these different shows, and then they turn on the news and watch all that violence. Don't think that this not impacting them in their mind. Kids are very impressionable, and that's why they can see somebody shot right in front of them and they don't even bat an eye, where we would be screaming hysterical if we saw someone get shot in our presence coming up. But it's almost like the norm for these kids.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Carla, whoever controls the information sets the agenda. I happened to run across a DVD that Jamal put out with Sister Sophia Deesa's Perception Management.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It would be nice if you made that available for parents as well as everyone else.
Okay, I'll talk to him about that. Now, where are you
really
calling
rich.
from?
Where are you calling from?
Riverside right now.
Oh, Riverside. Okay.
Okay. Well, we're going to tell Jamal about that, Keith, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And we like our time. We got like a couple of minutes. Any last thoughts?
For me?
Yeah. We got about 2 minutes. Yeah.
Well, I have studied media psychology. Research shows that when children watch television, period, the group that benefits are white boys. Everyone else, the more they watch TV, there's a commensurate decline in their self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very important to know, and it's critical that our children study their history and culture because it makes you stronger.
Well, I was reading as we close off, Keith. I can't remember what state it was, but they have adopted for their school system that they must teach Asian American history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I tell you, we sure start a lot of trends, don't we?
Yeah, the bill that just passed with the Asians, with the Asian violence thing, that's part of the thing that they actually want to teach. So basically, this is going to be part of what they call under the umbrella of critical
ethnic
race theory.
Studies.
No, critical race theory. Yeah.
Well, in Los Angeles, they have developed an ethnic studies course.
Yeah.
I wanted to be on that committee, right? And they were like, no, you need a credential. No, you should have taught ethnic studies. But what it boils down to, because I have a PhD in media psychology, right? Okay. Why can't I qualify to be on that committee? Well, when you think about it, that's their way of having control.
Yeah, it is.
Because if they only are using credentialed teachers, not psychologists, sociologists, other people that deal with students, if they're only using credentialed teachers, they'll probably just rehash the same old, and that's what our children are going to get.
Yeah.
They'll whitewash it, and so that's their way of having control.
Okay, we're gonna have to send Dr. Rosie an email because we might have to have you on since you're an expert in the field.
Exactly.
Well, I'm not saying all that.
You have enough knowledge to share.
If you have a PhD, that means guess what? You're an expert in the field. That's what you study. Yeah.
Sir, I'm a hybrid. Okay.
Oh, well, you're a hybrid thing.
I got a. I'm neighborhood and PhD, so.
Well, that is even better. So
exactly.
The thing is, we're out of time.
Email me at Dr. Rosie. Email me at Dr. Rosie, DRROSIE@AOL.com, okay?
Yeah.
Fine, I will do
so we can have you have a show because you got a lot to say, and we don't have time for you to say it, so it's better for you to come back on and be a guest.
We'll bring you on the show as a guest.
Yeah.
All righty? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Clock on the Wall said, that's all, you guys. It's been a great show. Pay attention to your family. Look at their eyes. Don't let them just run off in the room like nothing happening. Talk to your family. Notice any change in them. Take note of anything that you have not seen before. And please be aware of children, parent, grandparent, and all.
Yes.
Okay. You guys have a great day. We'll talk to you next week.
All right.